the live right now. Okay, so please, if the meet stops, we have to create a new link, and
Hmm.
I will send you right away in the email, so it's like seamless kind of,
Yeah,
or
exactly.
we can lose just a few minutes. Okay, so we're live, guys. We're live with Xander Smith now. Let's wait just a couple of minutes if so we can start getting ready for it. So before we start, a todos, I'm sorry, I'm going to start like moving from Spanish to English, so I'm sorry if that's kind of disturbing a bit. But well, it's important to do it. So, chicos, por favor, los que van llegando, bienvenidos. Espero que se encuentren bien todos. Así que bueno, vamos poco a poco arrancando con este Crad Live con Sander. Entonces, bienvenidos, pónganse cómodos, tomen su agüita, su cerveza, su gaseosa, su café para arrancar. ¿Listos? Entonces, okay, so let's wait a few minutes and we'll start with the crowd live. Okay, I will just let's put a story now. Let's put this in crowd live. Okay, this is Sander. Say hi. Okay. We're starting with this. Okay. Okay. I think we're ready for it. So, are going to start coming up. So, we can start right now. So, first of all, I am so happy to have you here in Crad Live, Sander. It's a big pleasure. We met back in October in the Cyber Summit. Such a nice guy, bro. Such a great artist. So it's a great pleasure to have you here in the Crowd Live. Thank you very much for accepting the invitation, for being here with us. So man, we're looking forward to this Crowd Live. So welcome. This is the 68th Crowd Live. So everybody, please say hi to Xander Smith.
Thank you, man. Yeah, I really appreciate that. I've been looking forward to this for a few months now. It's awesome to meet you at the Zebra Summit last year.
It was great, man. So welcome to this space. I am pretty sure that you're going to help us all with a lot of stuff. For me, I think I'm saying to you, your work is amazing. Your sense of design is pretty cool. As I told you once, like how you combine industry with design, like all this together is super cool. It's not just super focused on industry, but also design as well, and also like different, spaces, and that's pretty cool, man. Here we say like interdisciplinary. Not sure if that's the same in States.
Yeah, interdisciplinary. Yeah, thank you, man. I really appreciate all of that. I try.
No, you're doing pretty cool, my friend. So, well, first of all, to start this crowd live, the idea is that tell us a bit of yourself so we can get to know you better, just to get like in a context about who you are. Can you please tell us a bit of yourself, Sander?
Yeah, absolutely, man. Yeah, I mean, I've been drawing as long as I can remember. My parents tell me I was picking up a pencil when I was like 2 years old, so I kind of, had to be an artist. I didn't really have any other choice. Yeah, I, took every art class I possibly could in high school, all that good stuff. When I was 18, I moved to Los Angeles. I'd been working in basically a restaurant since I was 14, trying to save up enough money to go to an art school. And I found out about the Noman School of Visual Effects in Hollywood, and it seemed like that had the best potential to explore as many different types of industries and as many types of mediums as possible. It was very hard to like decide what to do. Obviously, my background was mainly as like a sculptor, painting and drawing. Um, but I wanted to get into working with computers because obviously I knew that's where the film industry was, television industry, games, all of those were the primary inspirations for me there. I was able to afford 1 year of school. I'd saved up that money, went to 1 year of school, and quickly realized that I would need a lot more schooling because obviously there's an incredible talent pool in the world. Um, and so after my first year of school, I made a deal with my parents that they would help me finance another year of school if I stayed out of trouble, I didn't get arrested,
Okay.
and I got straight A's. So we did that. We had that deal. I stuck to my promises. I cleaned up. Still couldn't afford to do like a full program. So what I did instead, and what I highly recommend to other artists, is you don't have to, have like a full curriculum, go to school full time. What you could do is just take an individual class, but treat it like a full schedule. So that's what I did. Um, I knew that I wanted to do concept art. Obviously design is my passion. I love characters, costumes, vehicles, environments, everything. So trying to figure out, should I stick to, 2D and illustration and focus on that skill set? Or do I need to go more heavily into 3D visual effects, modeling, texturing, that sort of thing? So I was talking to instructors at the time, and they all emphasized that I pick one. And I couldn't do that. I was like, I'm going to do both. So about that same time, I started also, I was working, I was taking on like every tiny little art job that I possibly could, trying to get as much income so that I could also be taking individual classes at another school in Pasadena in California called the Concept Design Academy. And at the Concept Design Academy, that's where I went more into 2D illustration, concept art, painting. And then at the Gnomon School is when I was focusing on my 3D. So that's I was really heavily into ZBrush, Maya, things like that.
That school is online or it is in person?
Oh, in person. Yeah, I was
Okay.
living in Hollywood at the time. So yeah, I was going to those couple schools, put that together. As soon as I had a portfolio that I thought was as close to industry standard as possible, I started reaching out to studios, other artists, art directors, things like that. Probably sent several thousand emails when I was wrapping up school. And luckily, I had a few studios that did hire me early on back in 2014. It was really the start of my career. So the first studio I was at was a studio in Hollywood called Gentle Giant, where I was mainly focused on sculpting in ZBrush for the collectibles and miniatures,
Cool.
that sort of thing. And doing a lot of 3D printing as well, which was definitely an excellent skill to have. And then to keep it short, ever since then, I really wanted to be in movies and television, so I was taking on contracts as much as possible. I've worked on features like American Horror Story, Star Wars, Godzilla vs. Kong, Aquaman, a bunch of other cool things. I'm very, very fortunate as an artist. And that was really my focus for like the next 6-7 years. Then I wanted to get more into business, and so I was approached by several like upcoming studios. One of them was a startup studio in Los Angeles that was actually focused on the artificial intelligence space. This was back in 2019, and that really piqued my curiosity because they were focused on digital humans, like high-end VFX, and combining that with artificial intelligence. And as soon as I had kind of started to do some research, I realized that AI was going to be absolutely game-changing. So I joined that studio as their lead artist, and we did a lot of work for avatars in the music industry. That company was later sold. Around that time, that's when if you remember the NFT space.
Okay,
So,
yeah, that's it was like a bomb here.
what did you say?
A bomb. It was like everyone wanted to get into the NFTs, and at the end of the story, like no one was buying any of them.
Exactly. Yeah. No, bomb is the right word for a lot of different reasons. At the time, I thought that it would empower a lot of artists to be able to treat digital work in the same way that you could treat traditional work. So there's a lot to say about the NFT space, but essentially I helped found a studio called House of Kiva up in Vancouver, Canada. I moved up there and I art directed them for a while. We sold out an NFT collection. various things happened at that studio, but it eventually went under. And so then after that, I wanted to get back into the AI space. This is when Mid-Journey started popping off. A lot of controversy around that. But yeah, ever since then, I've kind of been focused on working on some films, television in my spare time. And I've been taking the last year, basically about the last year off to really focus on what this emerging technology is going to be. So yeah, that's where I'm at now. I'm in Florida. I've been traveling around here in my Airbnb and talking with you. So
That's
that's
it.
the
That's the story. So guys, we finished our crowd live. It's over. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool because it's a journey, you know. And
Mhm.
first of all, as I mean, you say a lot of stuff, but I want to start with the beginning. You know, as many artists, you started when you were 2 years old, drawing with a pencil. You know, in what moment you say, okay, what I want to work on is in movies, in films, or do you want to be, for example, a traditional artist, or what was your like dream when you were, for example, 15, 16 years old? Like, you said you wanted to be an artist, but what kind of artist uh, were you determined to be in that moment?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to say. I've always had trouble choosing. I love fashion. I love characters. I love games. I think probably if you had asked me when I was 16, I would have said movies. I was very big into horror movies at the time. Obviously, all the makeup effects and interesting characters. And then also, I had a lot of influence from my parents, who are huge supporters of the arts, but they particularly love sci-fi movies. And so I was always very influenced by like Star Wars and Alien, things
Awesome.
like. So yeah, something like that.
That's pretty cool, man. That's pretty cool. And when you started to work in films and movies, you know, you said like, okay, this is a dream come true, like a first milestone, you say, or you want to say like, okay, I already entered, and this is the path that I wanted to go like for many years.
Um, yeah, I mean, I think I probably viewed it both ways, right? As when I got on my first television project, it was a TV show called Scream Queens, and I was working for a VFX studio called AFX Studio, and they're a studio that does like a lot of blood and gore and horror visual effects, practical effects, things like that. And yeah, exactly like you said, it was like a dream. I felt extremely fortunate. I've worked very hard to get there. I have a lot of mentors to thank. Um, yeah, and so then once I was kind of in there and designing, after that I was on American Horror Story, and yeah, I was probably like, I'd love to be working on movies, probably till I'm dead. Yeah.
That's pretty cool, man. That's something that a lot of people dream about. You know, like being working in these kind of films, these kind of features. That's pretty cool. And you said something really interesting when you were starting the story about you have to focus in one subject because you wanted to do environment, you wanted to do a lot of stuff like characters, different things, like probably animation as well. So
Hmm.
how did you focus? Because I have a lot of people that talk to me and say, hey, I love this industry, but I want to draw, I want to illustrate, I want to do environment, but I also love characters, but I also love props. And I say
Yes.
to them, oh, try to focus on what you love the most, and after that, try to start a career path. And then, if you want to do the other stuff, try to make them be as good as your main focus. But I don't know what was your approach at that moment.
Yeah, no, I think that's very good advice. Your students should definitely listen to that. It's definitely one of the number one things I'm asked by young artists and by my students as well. It's tough, right? Because I did not have focus. I was everywhere, everything all at once. Still to this day, even just today, I did some fine art 3D printing for a fine artist. I did some character design for myself. I did some fashion design with AI for another collaboration, all in the same day. So I think usually what I say is it comes down to your personality type. If you're like that and you're frantic, you want to explore lots of different things, but you can get each of those things done and you're good at that, you have that discipline, maybe not even discipline, maybe it's just obsession. But if you have that, then I say go for it. I know a lot of individuals who are artists who, they're all over the place. They love lots of stuff. And if that works for you, then, but there's also a lot of personality types that don't work that way. They can lose focus easily. It's very hard for them to keep discipline if they're all over the place. If you're one of those personality types, then I would say definitely write a list and pick, if you could only work on one thing for the rest of your life, what would that one thing be? And be very honest with yourself about that, and then focus on that. And then once you have that skill set, and maybe you're even, working professionally in that skill set, then in your spare time, go to the next thing on that list and start building from there. And then, as the years go on, suddenly you'll have a map drawn out of all these different skills that you can rely on, different industries that you can go in. So yeah, that's typically the kind of advice I would give them.
That's pretty cool. I have never thought about like personalities. I thought it was more like a focus stuff, like because for example, I am a character artist, and it was hard to get here because I had to learn like from YouTube and the internet, PDF, a lot of stuff, a lot of resources, and it was really hard to get to work as a character artist because the level was high, and I never felt like I was good enough. So I have to learn and practice. So if I would have focused in different stuff, I think I would have never be where I am right now, like being a character artist, because it's like a lot of focus on studying and learning and practicing. It's really hard.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I really admire that about you, man, that you bootstrapped it and you did, achieve that focus. And so much of it is self-taught. So yeah, it's amazing, man.
Thank you very much, man. First of all, I'm going to stop here. I want to quiero preguntarle and ask people if you can hear us well. Please, can you write in the comments of the video? Can you hear us well? Everything is okay with the audio? Maybe we have been talking for 20 minutes and no one has listened to us. So please, can someone please confirm us? Chicos, ¿alguien nos puede confirmar por favor si todo está bien en el video, en el audio? ¿Todo está perfecto? Me escriben,
Yep.
porfa. Okay, so here's
While you're
Mike.
out, grab one thing.
No, don't worry, go for it. Chicos, porfa, aprovechemos esto de pronto. Ok, dicen que everything's okay. Mike. Hey, Mike.
Yeah.
You remember Mike from the summit? Mike, it's Yavuz, and I don't know if that it's correct, so I'm so sorry. Yavuz Selim, I'm so sorry if it is not the pronunciation, but hey, hi guys, I hope you are all fine here. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you very much for being here. I know it's not easy, but you're making it. So I say hi to all of you, and Xander is here, so if you have any question, please go for it, ask the question, and he will be super happy to answer. So okay, go for it. And chicos, en español, si quieren hacer una pregunta y no saben cómo escribirla, háganla en español y yo la puedo retransmitir en inglés. ¿Listos? Así que adelante, con confianza. Xander es una buena persona, así que adelante, ¿listos? I'm sorry, Xander, we were like this interruption just to check if everything was okay and to say hi to people. So yeah, my Summit brothers, says Mike. Okay, our Summit guy, Mike, Mr. Morgan.
Yeah, let me do a couple of shout outs. I want to say hi to Mike Morgan in the chat. He gave me this incredible, can we see this okay? This is an artist glove. I use this literally every day since he gave it to me when I'm drawing on my iPad. It's like amazing quality. Yeah, works super well. Highly recommend it. If he wants to post a link in his chat, we have a collab coming up too. It's going to be dope. And then I want to say hi to Yavuz as well. I've worked a lot with Yavuz. He's an incredible 2D animator. And we actually have some work coming up that's coming pretty soon too. He's excellent. Highly recommend you check out both of their Instagrams. And hi to everyone else too.
Everyone, Manuel Jordan is an artist from Peru, a super great artist as well. So you should check his work as well. He's a character designer as well, so pretty cool. So let's keep up with this. So when you were starting, you started to focus on your work. As you said, you think about your personality, that you can do a lot of stuff, and being focused in different stuff because it's like being curious, you know. What do you think is one of the most important characteristic or assets that people should have when they're starting in this career? Maybe when they're like, okay, I want to work for films. What's the main characteristic that they have? They should have, like, you have to be like this.
Man, that's a really tough question, actually. You want me to answer like film specifically or just in general?
Like, I'm talking about the industry. Maybe the industry you work for is games, sorry, films mainly. But if you can answer for different industries, it's perfect fine.
Yeah, let me think for a moment. It's tough, man, because even though there's a lot of similarities with artists, there's so many different personality types that go with arts. So it's tough to generalize advice. That's why I love when I do like classes with my students. I can like really tailor it to the individual. Um, One sec, I just got another call. Um, Man, can you rephrase the question so it's not as general?
Okay, so what for students? What would be an advice for students? You know, so what would be the main? How can I say that? Like the main characteristic that the student should have to uh, to work in the industry, to success in the industry. For example, I could say discipline. You know, I would say discipline is super important. But for you,
Yeah,
what would be?
yeah, no, discipline is a really good answer. I mean, obviously, you're not going to go anywhere without discipline, especially in an ultra competitive environment like film. You have to acquire discipline. I would say also something that really complements discipline is making sure that you can find what you're passionate about. Obviously, the most let's just say passion-driven careers are also the most competitive. So I always kind of combine that with the advice that if you know what you're most passionate about, what you need to do is branch out into a lot of other industries or types of work that maybe you're not as passionate about, but those skill sets can supplement your passion and enhance it. And so, as long as you can kind of focus on that whole area, say for like design, um, you'll always stay passionate. And as long as you can develop that, that helps a ton with your discipline. Um, yeah, I know a lot of artists who are like, they're very disciplined, but they lose passion for the work. And so they burn out.
Okay.
And obviously, you burn out, you're not going to make it much further. So, yeah, hope that's not too general, passion and discipline. But yeah, another one I like is obsession. If there's something that you're obsessed with, you can't put it down. You would do it for free. That's your personality type telling you something. You should definitely pursue that as well. So yeah, hopefully those three are useful for people.
That's pretty cool, man. Because I think, for example, sometimes passion is a word that I love. I always talk about passion. You know, I think that people should have passion for their work. But sometimes people think like, okay, if I work for passion, maybe the people that is contracting them is like hiring them is going to be like abusing them. Like
Mm.
if they work for passion, I can pay them less, and they're going to be so fine. So that's the thing about passion that I love it, but sometimes the work is too much about it.
Yeah, that's a very, very good point. Yeah, be careful of work like that. There's definitely a balancing act, right? Like, there's definitely jobs that I have taken that couldn't pay as much, but I really loved the work I was doing. I really wanted it in my portfolio, and so there's always kind of that balancing act there to be conscious of.
That's pretty cool, man. Here we have Andres Martinez, and also an amazing artist from Colombia. He has been in Lightbox Expo a lot of times, so he's pretty cool. And he's also part of the Concept Art Association, so he's been doing a lot of great work. And before we continue, we have a question here from Mike,
Mhm.
and he says like, "Love the red in your branding, and it's your signature color. What are your theories on using the striking red in your work?"
Yeah, I love that question. I don't know that I necessarily have a theory behind it. It's more like I love the emotionality that it evokes across a variety of different subject matters. You can see on my Instagram right now, I'm kind of using it in like more costume illustration. I'm using it with like these stark editorial horror pieces. I just love the what that color palette can kind of do for the viewer emotionally, I guess you'd say. Yeah, it's like it's aggressive, but it's elegant. Yeah, yeah. It really interests me, but it definitely came out of what I like to see in an artist portfolio. So trying to focus more on my own interests versus what I think is going to be like, the most marketable for the industry. Yeah, so that's kind of where that comes from.
That's pretty cool because, as I told you, it's like showing what you can design as well. It's not just a portfolio for the industry, but also shows who you are, kind of.
Hmm.
So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
And what you said takes to me to this question that is like I always ask this because I think it's super important. What do you think about trends? Do you think trends are important for the portfolio?
Sorry, what's the word? Trades?
Trend, like trends.
Oh,
Like
trend.
yeah, trends. I'm sorry. Sorry for my English, guys.
No, no, you sound great. Trends. Yes. It's tough. This is actually something I'm really thinking about right now. On one hand, you need to observe trends. You need to observe what's marketable. You need to be very conscious of what consumers are into, right? And you need to tailor your portfolio to that. And that's going to make you a marketable artist. At the same time, the true greats don't they don't care about trends, right? They do what they love. And that's dangerous, right? Because what you love might not be very marketable at all, at least not at this point in time. So yeah, what I'm trying to do is like find a healthy balance between the two in my portfolio. I think recently I'm definitely more focusing on what I love. But if you look at my portfolio prior to this year, I definitely went after certain trends. So you could see like a lot of design that was like tailored towards, say Star Wars, something like that, or work that I know is going to be in particular industries. So yeah, try to find a balancing act. But yes, I think trends are very, very important. I think it's very important to compare your portfolio to other working artists out there and to get a benchmark of where you're at in the industry.
That's pretty cool. First of all, we have a question from Demet, but I don't want to do it right now because we haven't entered to the custom work that Xander does. So let's wait for a minute before I ask him about it, and then we can ask your question. Okay, Demet? I'm sorry for it. Just keep there for a few minutes. Um, Regarding to this subject, Xander, what do you think about, for example, in my own perspective, even though I think that trends are important so people can know you better, as you said, you can be more marketable. I think that trends don't show who you are. Trends
Yeah.
don't show your personal interest. Trends don't show your personal work as it should be. And I tell the people, I tell artists, I tell students like you should do as well your personal work based on what you love because it's connected with passion. You do what you love and you do what passionates you the most and what's part of who you are. I gave this advice to Manuel. He's here one day because like a lot of people want to do, for example, it was the same subject in that moment, like a few years ago. A lot of people do, for example, dragons, and they want to do like dragons like Asian people do, and Asians do dragons like pretty cool, but because
Hmm.
dragons mean something for them, you know, dragons mean something for people from Asia, from their culture. It's super important for them. But here in Latin America, for example, why do we have to do dragons? Where they are not like part of our culture. We can do a lot of stuff showing who we really are.
Hmm.
So and that's what like a piece of advice that I gave to him, and I think that's pretty important because it shows people who we really are. We don't have to do the same thing that everyone is doing. We can do what we like to do, what we love, what is part of us, and we can make it like super dope. So what do you think about it?
No, I love that, man. Yeah, it's very good advice. I like the dragon example too, because I mean, everyone loves designing dragons, but like it's the most saturated design ever. There's every dragon design has already been done, or at least that's what it feels like. And one thing that I've found very valuable in my own portfolio and lots of my students' portfolios has been you could take a trend, let's just say, or a particular IP that you really like. So let's take dragons. We know dragons are going to be marketable. It looks great if you want to be a creature designer, if you want to be a digital sculptor or a creature modeler. You want a dragon in your portfolio, right? You can show off your anatomy skills. You can show off, all those design skills that are relevant to those fields, right? But what you might then consider doing is exactly taking Andres' advice, where instead of just, creating the dragon that we've all seen, redoing Game of Thrones or redoing Smog or redoing a Chinese dragon, take something from your own culture, from your own inspiration, or anything that's singular to you, and bring that into the dragon design. And that's a way that you can hopefully come up with something that has never been seen before, which is obviously the goal. That way you're taking advantage of the trend. You're also staying true to yourself, and you're also giving as much passion as you possibly can. Yeah, good advice.
Cool. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Put out at least something that means who you are, that shows who you are, that make you stand out from the other people. That's great.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's so important.
Here we have Manuel. He says, yes, Amaru is coming, which is the Andean dragon. It will be it's in the process, I guess. Andean dragon, I think it's a dragon from Latin America, from the Andean zone Andina, probably. That's pretty cool. I haven't seen that. I like to see that. Okay, so first of all, let's get into the custom stuff, so we can have the question from Demet. Then we are going to go with Jabaz question. Okay, so first of all, when you got into the industry, you started working. You said like a 3D sculptor for printing.
Mm-hmm.
You started working on it, and then you moved to the design part.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so immediately after sculpting for collectible action figures, things like that, I was able to get a job working in television. So that was kind of that next move.
When you started to work in television, what was your first kind of work? Like designing for television, for characters, creatures, or props, for example?
Yeah, actually kind of all of the above. Like I said, I was on a TV show called Scream Queens, which is kind of a slasher comedy. It was done by Ryan Murphy, who's the same creator of American Horror Story. And I worked, it was very cool. I'm very, very fortunate for this opportunity. I was able to work with a visual effects studio called AFX Studio, at the same time working for the costume designer on the television show, because the two were linked. A lot of the special makeup effects had to do with the costume design. And so we would be at the studio, and I'd have the costume designer. Her name was Lou Eyrich. She's absolutely legendary. And she'd be sitting on one side, and then the head of the studio, David Anderson, would be sitting on the other side, and we'd all be collaborating, and I'd have my little tablet, and I'd be trying to take notes from both of them. And one of the pieces, or the main piece I was working on, was a design for the serial killer in the movie. The serial killer was it was a red devil, essentially. So yeah, I was designing the costume elements, but then also this red devil mask. And the red devil mask had to be very classic, but it had to just have a hint of kind of creepy sexiness.
Okay.
Very stuff, yeah. So yeah, that was kind of my first intro. And what was extra cool about it was, because I had this background working in 3D, and I just so happened to have that job working for 3D printing, I knew how to be designing in ZBrush while making sure that the mask and all the props were 3D printable at the same time. which is ultimately why I was able to be on that job for so long, because I was very valuable to the studio, because we would design in ZBrush, and then we take that design and we could paint on top of it to take quick notes. At the same time, we could take that 3D file and 3D print a tiny little bust of it, so that the makeup effects artists could be trying out different types of paint on it. The sculptors could start putting their clay down and start roughing in the proportions. So yeah, it proved to be very valuable to be pursuing both 2D and 3D at the same time. And yeah, it got me on a really incredible job that kind of opened up the rest of the opportunities of my career. So I'm very, very grateful and fortunate for that.
That's pretty cool, and there's something that people can learn from that is that sometimes you can have a work maybe you don't like the most, but you always learn something and you have to use it for your advantage. Like if you work at anything, maybe you can learn something about that work, and that is going to be useful for your next one. So next time you're going to have like more skills than your partners, than your people around you, because you learned something before. But if you always are like, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do this, and you don't learn anything about your work, you're never going to be like have a better skill set. So that's great,
Yeah.
because you used your printing, sculpting for printing techniques, and that learnings you move to the films, and that's going to give you a better idea of what you have to do.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. You never know how a skill might contribute, years down the line, to, and open up the doors to new opportunities and new types of work. I have 100 different stories from myself, my colleagues, and my students where, they'll take some job that they hate. They have to feed themselves that month, and that job teaches them some skill that later on they suddenly have this, an ability that their colleagues didn't have, and it opened the doors to them. So try to find that passion in everything. You never know how it's going to turn out.
That's pretty great advice, my friend. And then I want to get into the subject of costumes, like costume design. When did you pass from being in this kind of works and move your passion to costume design? How was that transition?
Yeah, I mean, I've always loved costume. There's no character without costume. I always loved fashion as well. I really don't know where that influence came from. But yeah, even when I was like a teenager, in high school, I'd have like fashion magazines in my backpack along with a sketchbook. Yeah, weird assortment of stuff. But yeah, I would say it was really born out of my love for characters. There's no character without costume, and so I always kind of built the two together. And even when I'm doing things like creature design or vehicle design, there's always some influence of fashion and how it interacts with the human body. So yeah, all of that just like contributed very naturally to my work in costume, and becoming part of the Costume Designers Guild, and now also working in the digital fashion industry as well.
That's pretty cool. Before Demet, a question I wanted to ask: how was that transition? Like, you create a portfolio with costumes while you were working in the other stuff, or you had like a previously created portfolio for that, or how was it like? And you send portfolios with costume design, or you create a different portfolio just with costumes. How was that transition, man? Like, how did you find that work in costume?
Yeah, actually, all of the above. I mean, I'm always building portfolio work. I don't think a day has gone by. That's not true, but maybe a handful of days have gone by in the last 10 years where I wasn't actively making personal work. And because such a staple of my work is costume and fashion, usually the personal piece that I'm working on has some sort of element of that. Yeah, the next part, it's exactly like you said. You have kind of a general portfolio, right? In my case, it was characters, creatures, costumes, and a lot of it intermingled. There's a lot of 3D work, 2D work, and that's kind of the base portfolio. And that's the portfolio, if you go to like my art station, that's kind of what it's like.
Yeah.
But then what you do from there is, you have your flat line of work, and then you can start building like very tailored portfolios out of that. So I do have a very specific costume design portfolio as well. And just the more you work, the more you're going to build these up. And so kind of what it looks like right now is like I have a general portfolio. Within that, I have a costume design portfolio. And within that, I have a costume illustration, a costume 3D printable portfolio, and basically a virtual avatar for digital fashion portfolio. And so it just kind of stacks on itself. And then whenever a job opportunity comes up, or I'm able to pitch to someone, or I'm able to share my work with someone, it allows me to really tailor that pitch to the individual. So that's kind of been my approach. But I would definitely say start with that foundation, like we said at the beginning of the conversation, and then slowly build these kind of parallel pillars of your portfolio as you go.
Like variations of your portfolio.
Exactly.
That's pretty cool. And now we can go with the question of Demet. And he say, hey Xander, is it hard to bring a costume designer's vision into life? How is the process?
Yeah, it's very hard. In my experience, I've worked with amazing costume designers. Most recently, I worked for Marvel on an upcoming show for a costume designer, Daniel Salon. And they have it's interesting. In my experience, they have a pretty particular vision, and you're trying to read their mind and bring that vision to life on paper. But then within that particular vision, they have lots of different variations that can work. And what you're trying to do is narrow all of that down, but share as many different ideas as you possibly can. It's very challenging because, especially for someone like me, I want to inject my own ideas in there as well. So you got to take your ego out of it and really try to figure out what they're trying to accomplish. And then at the same time, they have to take into consideration things like budget, things like the practicality of a costume, the lighting on the set, the fit of the actor, even things like how happy the actor is going to be wearing this particular piece.
Okay.
So you have 1,000 different considerations, and you have to boil all of that down into like one paint stroke. And oftentimes that paint stroke you have to do in front of the costume designer and all of the ACDs, and that's being sent to the producers and the executives and the director. So it's a lot of pressure. It's very, very difficult. But it's very, very rewarding because you are a conduit for someone who has much more design experience than you, or I should say in my case, I'm still relatively junior. I've only been active in the industry for about 10 years now. And so when I work with a costume designer, very frequently, they have multiple decades more of experience than I do. And so even though it's difficult, it's very rewarding because you're actively learning so one-to-one through their kind of imaginative process. So yeah, hopefully that helps with the question. Let me just make sure. Yeah, you said how is the process? Yeah, hopefully that answers a bit of that.
And this is like my own question, trying to understand your process. If you want to do a custom design for you, like not for a designer, not for anyone else, like for a personal work that also can work for portfolio, what do you think about? Like, do you think about a subject, or do you think about like a culture, or do you think about like fashion, trending fashion? What's like the main inspiration when you do this kind of personal work in custom? Like, because it's your vision, it's your own, Then you can go with your ego in this kind of personal work.
Right. Definitely all of the above. I think all of that's you have to consider it when figuring out what the portfolio piece, what the personal work needs to look like. Pick up a Vogue magazine and then pick up an art book by your favorite character designer and start combining the two. Yeah, that's been my approach.
That's pretty cool, man. And have you used like Marvelous Designer for this kind of costume design, or just like drawing, just like sculpting?
Yeah, no, I have used Marvelous Designer. Not as much as I'd like to. I actually, it's always like a secondary priority, but it's always the top of my list with secondary priorities. But I love Marvelous. Some of the companies that I'm collaborating with in the digital fashion space use Marvelous and Clo 3D. It's a brilliant program. Obviously, it's physics based, and it gives you an understanding of actual pattern making and cuts. And then obviously, also has incredible integration with programs like ZBrush as well. So I highly recommend it. I think it's going to be a very competitive skill set going into the future. But for me, yeah, I have more a focus on painting and drawing particular costume pieces, because obviously, as a costume illustrator in the Costume Designers Guild, that's kind of the most important skill set. The kind of next one on top of that has been a lot of photo bashing, which I hope to be done with now that we're kind of in the age of AI.
Okay.
We can get to that a bit later. But yeah, being able to photo bash and integrate that into paintings is very, very, very valuable. And then on top of that, most of my 3D work with fashion, costumes, and apparel has actually been in ZBrush. I started off just learning how to sculpt fabric in ZBrush, like even from a sphere. And I think that's a very, very valuable way for students to understand the properties of fabric, because fabric is one of the most difficult things to paint, to sculpt. It's very, very highly complex, and it's so easy to get wrong. So traditional sculpting or sculpting in ZBrush has been great. And now ZBrush even has a whole suite of brushes, as you know, that are like cloth brushes that can simulate some of that. I highly recommend all of those. They're very, very useful. So yeah, combining all those things, my portfolio now is kind of usually a combination of all of those.
Awesome. That's great. Like mixing techniques. Here we have. We can go with first of all. Demet says that was a really informative answer. Thank you. And we go with Jabaz. He says, okay, question. What strategies do you use to maintain your creative vision as an artist while managing your clients?
Yeah, that's tough, man. Client management is, man, that's a whole job in and of itself, right? Creative strategies. Yeah, I mean, speaking very practically, like I said, every single day I make sure that I'm working on something for myself. Whether that's shared to the world or not doesn't really matter as long as I can do that. So that kind of keeps me grounded, keeps me passionate, and gives me the kind of discipline to go into that client work and kind of have those working together. Obviously, the more you can kind of combine the two is another really great strategy. So for me, if I want to be working on a fashion piece, what I'm going to try to do is reach out to fashion studios as well and see if I can bring in some contracts that are in the fashion space. That way, when I'm working on my personal project for the day, it's very, very in line with the client work that I'm doing. And so neither one of them burns each other out, and it strikes really nice balance between the two. So that's what I try to do. It doesn't always work out that cleanly, but when it does, it just kind of fuels itself. Yeah, it allows me to manage clients with passion without losing any steam, and then get back to my own personal work and know that that personal work is going to serve a purpose greater than just my own enjoyment.
That's pretty cool, man. I have another question from Juan Valencia, and he says, how does your job relate to the job of those people who make the real life costume that the actor actress wears in a live action movie? Are those two jobs connected or not really?
Great question. They're absolutely connected, and it's very important that you're able to connect the two. I'm not the best at this. I'm like a very digital person, and one of my goals in the next couple of years is to learn more about actual fabrication, because when you're illustrating, say, a garment or a shirt, if you don't understand the properties of the fabric, if you don't understand the patterning or the cuts or the say thickness of a material, how a pattern is going to align, it's very, very hard to illustrate something correctly that the actual pattern makers, the actual costumers are going to be able to translate in real life. So a great example of this, when I did a contract last year for Marvel Studios, I was working in their costume department. They wanted me in person. You know, they didn't want me to be remote. That way, every single day when I'm drawing, or in this case, painting or sculpting, I can walk right down the hall, put that illustrate, you know, we'd print it out on actual paper, and I could put that illustration down next to the costume designer, next to the pattern makers, next to the assistant costume designers, the fabricators. We're all in a room as a team, and I can get all of their input, and they're all basically teaching me, right? So it's an incredible learning experience too. And then I take all of that and I can bring that back to the design on paper. So yeah, very, very important that you have some real world experience. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Thank you, Juan, for the question. Thank you, Xander, as well.
Yeah, great.
Let's have a few minutes here. Again, thank you very much for all of you who are in the Crad Live. I know it's not easy for you, but thank you very much for being here. I hope that Xander is giving you amazing insights and amazing teachings and learnings. So please keep the questions. Go for it. Go for a glass of water and keep hearing the Crad Live, because we are going to start getting into deeper subjects here. So, okay, thank you very much. Gracias a los que están en este momento conectados. Si tienen preguntas en español que no las pueden hacer en inglés, háganlas. Yo les haré la traducción, así que adelante. Sin pena, sin miedo. Vamos que sí se puede charlar con Xander. Así que adelante, aprovechenlo al máximo. Y nada, gracias nuevamente por estar conectados con nosotros, chicos. This is a Spanglish lesson, so this is great.
I need it.
Keep going to Crowd Lives. It's going to be Spanglish. Don't worry. Okay, so
man,
sorry, go for it.
I was gonna say that's another goal of mine in the next couple of years. I want to be bilingual, man. I gotta come out to Colombia. You need to teach me.
Come here, and we're going to teach us as much as we can.
We got some things in the works, yeah.
Yeah. So all of you guys, stay tuned to Crad, because some stuff is coming here. So go for it. So now I wanted to ask you something. You said that you have been like a lot of time into fashion. Do you know where does that come from? Like, why did you start getting too much into fashion? Like, you like it when you were a kid? Maybe you were like looking too much. These kind of references.
Honestly, I don't really know where that influence came from. I'm not particularly fashionable myself, as you can see. Yeah, I really think it was more a birth from my love for character design. I also think that some of the most stunning imagery is editorial imagery. You know, what you might see on the cover of a fashion magazine. Yeah, there's just so many elements that come together to make some of that the most eye-catching imagery possible. You know, the makeup design, the retouching, how the fabrics are going to interact, and obviously what the model looks like. So I think fashion is kind of a way that like all of my passions come together in like a single image. So I think that's probably where that comes from.
And when did you decide to move from films to the fashion industry? Like, when was that decision coming?
Yeah, it was fairly natural. What I would say is I'm not exactly in the fashion industry in the way we think of it. I've never had contracts, say, from like a Vogue magazine or say from like a fashion company like a Balenciaga. But I have collaborated with a couple companies in the digital fashion space. And the reason they reached out to me to collaborate and to work on a few contracts was because a lot of my portfolio for film is very fashion oriented, and they've told me that I have one of the more fashionable concept artist portfolios. So it kind of just was a natural evolution from costume design. That being said, though, I'm definitely looking to get much more into the fashion space, especially in the editorial space. So hopefully some big news coming soon then.
Have you reached them out?
I can't say too much, but yeah, I'm working on some things. It's definitely a big goal this year. Yeah, there's so much incredible imagery that's like editorial, but that combines like 3D practical elements. Um, a great example of this, you might know the artist Grimes. I think she's an American artist, and she has a lot of these album covers where she will combine like fantasy, sci-fi, backgrounds and armor and things that you make in 3D, and you combine that with a live photo shoot and create just very, very stunning imagery that's like very conceptual, almost kind of video gamey, but still very elegant and editorial. So that's definitely where some of my interests are right now, and you can see on my Instagram too. In that space.
That's pretty cool, man. That's pretty cool. Here we have a question from Mike. He says, "What costume design from old movies you saw growing up that really
Mm.
inspired you?"
Oh man, there's so much good stuff. The two things that like immediately come to mind, obviously, are like the original Star Wars trilogy.
Okay.
Still to this day, there's so much that's iconic about all of the costume designs in that because they're so deeply cultural. I mean, we're still seeing Darth Vader, capture people's imaginations and be a relevant symbol for villainy, right? A lot of those shapes and form language that comes from a costume design like Darth Vader is influenced by, we're on YouTube, so I don't think I can say the word, but let's just say a horrible fascistic regime in the 1930s and 40s Germany, right? So yeah, Han Solo is like a cowboy without the cowboy hat. So that was definitely a huge influence in a way that you can bring cultural relevance into your costume designs and have them be absolutely timeless. Um, and then for me personally, another really big one, it's a little bit understated, was the original Alien movie. I think a lot of how they integrated uh, bionics into the actual like space suits was just a really interesting way to me that the costume designer combined multiple influences into something that was believable. It still felt like a NASA spacesuit, but it just had this edge of creepy organic wear to it, and it was, yeah, very, very genius. So yeah, those are some of those first influences. Very sci-fi heavy.
Pretty cool, man. Here we have Juan Valencia asking, I had heard of people who work doing clothes related stuff in 3D, but I had never heard of the costume concept artist specifically. What kind of studios or productions usually have these job openings?
Hmm. Um, Costume concept artists. I might be wrong about this, but that's not usually the specific title. More so in the Hollywood film industry, it would be a costume illustrator. Um, and those are very, very niche jobs. They really only exist on large productions that have some type of fantasy or sci-fi element to them. And a lot of that is just because before you're going to spend a ton of money fabricating some elaborate, piece of armor, helmets, or elven dress, let's just say, you need to make sure that you understand that design from a 2D perspective. So yeah, that's kind of where that specific job role comes from and why it's so highly specialized.
That's pretty cool, man. Yeah, I mean, I think what Juan says is also like a doubt that I had. Sometimes you can see, hey, I work as a costume concept artist. For example, David Mason. He's like a lot of character and costume focused, but probably his work is more is bigger than just that. But he loves costume and character design. So
Yes, absolutely. I think he's one of the best working character designers and costume concept artists. Yeah, I mean, you could be right. Obviously, a lot of it's just specific to like the title that a studio is going to give you. I haven't been personally labeled as, a costume concept artist as a title, but it most certainly could exist. But yeah, I mean, we're talking about the same thing, right? Costume illustrator, character designer. It's all kind of in the same ballpark.
That's great, man. And now I wanted to ask you what we were talking about last day, and it's how you started to combine technology, and like new technology trends with your art, so you can get the best of the both worlds without being disrespectful, let's say, with the artist. So we're talking about AI right now, okay?
Mm.
So it's like a seamless way to get into the subject.
Yeah, this is the controversy, right? Yeah, I mean, I've always been very interested in technology and how it can empower the artist, right? So, when I was very young, I was working in, clay and, with a pencil on paper. Uh, but the only way that you could get those mediums to be as fast as needed for a production and as high a quality as possible for a production was to learn how to work with computers, right? So then go forward a few years, and now you need to implement things like 3D to be able to still be cutting edge, to still be able to bring uh, the ideas to life that I wanted to bring to life, what I saw in my head. So I went 3D. Um, Always trying to stay on like the cutting edge and always trying to bring that back into how can I get the ideas in my head on paper, not only in the fastest way possible because I have a lot of ideas and I want to get to them all, but also how to give them the right visual representation to get people to look at them, to inspire emotion in people, to get hired, to make money, right? Um, so yeah, it's a natural evolution in my opinion, and the very latest technological development for that is AI. And basically, where I'm at with AI is that there has been an incredible injustice done to artists. There was a moment, or I should say, an ongoing period of time where unethical behavior has been done to all of us artists, and that is these large tech companies basically scraping the internet to train on our work without, and that is a wrong that has happened. That being said, though, there's no going back in time. There's not going to be any stopping of this. As far as I can tell, it does not violate copyrights as the laws are written. So there's no putting the genie back in the bottle, so to speak. So because of that, two things. One, I do think it's incredibly empowering to those with an active imagination for a variety of reasons. We can get into that next. But then also, if you want to be relevant as a digital artist working in these industries, you're going to have to learn it. So whether you like it or not, I think that it is going to allow you to have the next level of hireability, let's just say, for yourself. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now, and I'd love to take any questions on this controversial subject.
That's pretty cool. I have the question that I told you last time, and it was like, when in one of your posts you say that you wanted to have AI working for you, not you working for AI. So, and we're talking about training the algorithm with your own work, so it doesn't mix with any other artist. It's just your work that's being training the system. So I think that's a pretty good way to be ethical in the work. Use your own work and your own style and your own technique to fulfill, the system, and I think that's pretty cool. And that can give you like a great output. So how can we artists do that? Like train the systems with our own work, so in that way we don't do unethical practices with AI.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well said. I think this is a very important question for artists right now. So let's start from the beginning. One is currently, I don't think there's a way to train a data set on only your work and get it to have good output. What I mean by that is the only way that these large models are able to create useful output is because they were trained on billions of images. And unless you're an artist with billions of images yourself, you're not going to be able to make a model that can compete in that way. So that's the first thing. That could change, and I'm very interested. I try to keep my finger on the pulse of the latest technological trends because I would like to train a model only on my work that doesn't touch anyone else's work, and I think that that's coming, and I think that will be very valuable. A quick side note to that is, like we talked about yesterday, you and I, if you could do that, what that allows you to do is essentially be the art director of your own studio. Having an AI working underneath you essentially allows you to have the capability of an entire studio and make you as competitive as, you know, a AAA big company all in yourself. So something to think about for those of you that are interested in getting more into the AI space. Yeah, the next piece of that is actually doing the training yourself. So like I said, you won't be able to make a model that's only on your work. However, what you can do and what I recommend and what I do in my work over the last year has been using an open source AI program called Stable Diffusion. And I think this is very important to use a program like this instead of one of the large tech companies' AIs. For example, the very biggest one is called Midjourney. I'm sure we've all used that or played with it by now. And obviously with Midjourney, you have very little control over the output. You have a few different buttons and you can insert a prompt. But essentially, whatever you're making is beholden to the closed source company that owns it, right? You're paying them, you're making them richer. You're not able to do anything yourself with that model. And so that's, in my opinion, that's more the unethical route that a lot of the current landscape is proposing. What I'd recommend instead is getting into the open source space. And so what this allows you to do is your contributions are all local to your computer. You're building up your own data sets. You're having it work for you. You can maintain some degree of artistic integrity. And you can build models that are more and more tailored to your specific vision as an artist. So in my case, what I did was I started with their, I believe it's called their Stable Diffusion 1.5, but it's the model that will come with Stable Diffusion when you download it. And it's trained on the entirety of the internet. But then what you can do is you can start uploading and training on your own work. And so I uploaded basically my whole body of work, and then I started expanding that horizontally, training over the last year, building a data set that's custom to me, that is more and more trained on my own images. So that's what I'm currently using for a lot of my outputs. Yeah, so that's kind of the foundation, I think, to start talking about how artists can take back some of that power, empower themselves, hopefully right some of this injustice, and allow them to bring this technology to elevate their own skill sets.
Great, man. I think that's pretty important. Pretty important to understand that we're in a growing industry, you know, and as you said, it's not going to stop. So we need to advance and we need to learn new techniques, which we were going to be. I mean, I don't use it, but I have to because I think it's important to get, as Xander says, like in the industry being ethical and with the technology trends. So I think it's important, as you said. So guys, we have to start like being open-minded with it, but let's try to not be. I mean, let's not be unethical with it. Try to do as much as you can without that kind of stuff being affecting other artists. So that's pretty great. That what Xander says, make AI working for you and you don't work for them. So that's pretty cool. And we have a lot of questions here. We have here. What TV shows do you think have the best costume designs?
Oh man, our current era of television is like the best ever. It's the most talented people. It's the best made creations. It's the combination of practical effects and visual effects. It would be very hard to pick. It's all absolutely killer because it's so competitive. The very best of the best are working on it. It might just be because I was reading a post from the Costume Designers Guild right before this. But I really love the costume work in the Game of Thrones series and House of the Dragon. Um, yeah, it's just absolutely masterfully done, combining all these kind of elements and having such distinct cultures. Yeah, just rich in depth. Yeah, that's like I know that's a little bit dated now, but that's like a current favorite of mine that I'm really focusing on and looking at. Um, Another one's gonna pop into my mind. I'll come back to that question when it hits me. But yeah, that's what I'm looking at right now.
That's pretty cool. We have here Juan Valencia. Hey, thank you very much, Juan and Demet. You're being and Mike as well, being very, very active with it, with the Crad Life. So we have here Juan. What would you wish people would appreciate more about your craft? What are those little details that people sometimes miss because they don't know much about the topic?
Oh man, you're gonna hate my answer, but the answer right now is the use of AI. There's a lot of trying to think how to say this. I've faced a bit of backlash recently because I'm using it, and a lot. I should say some of that backlash comes from a misunderstanding of what the technology is and how it's used. In ways that I'm using it, it's not as simple as you type in a prompt and you get the image and the image is done. That's lazy design work. I highly recommend artists don't use it that way. What you need to do instead is cultivate your own imagination and be able to see clearly what you want, or at least see variations of what you want, and then force the AI to work for you and help you evolve that. Yeah, I think there's a bit of misunderstanding in how AI can be implemented right now, and kind of a a misunderstanding of AI being used to brainstorm ideas. I think that's what AI is very good at. You type in a prompt and you can just generate images. And that's great for brainstorming, to get ideas, to maybe get out of a rut, to come up with ideas you haven't thought of. But it does not end there. You have to keep designing. You have to draw over it. You have to paint over it. You have to give it your 3D. You're going to keep training on it, and you're going to get output from that. And then you're going to go back and you're going to draw on top. What I've found in this process in the last year is the better I can paint, the better conversation I can have with my artificial intelligence helper, let's just say. If you look at my Instagram recently too, I've been very, very focused on traditional painting and drawing, because the better I am at painting and making sure that that painting reads, it has form and light and value, the better my artificial intelligence can work with that and give me the output that I need and can keep crafting on top of that. So yeah, I think that's a major misunderstanding, is that AI just gives you output and you're done. I think how artists really need to look at it is you're designing something that's never been seen before, and that should be your goal. And the problem is AI has only ever seen art that's already been done. So it can give you things that's been done before and give you combinations and things like that. But it's up to you as a designer to actually give that voice and soul. Yeah, hopefully that's not too controversial. I don't want to get Crowd into too much trouble.
Don't worry. I think actually AI it's super controversial. So anything we say here is going to be like part of the controversy next day. But at the same time, I think that it's important to understand that some people call artists themselves just by using AI and using the prompt output just as if it was their work, and they're using it like as if it was like a concept art or a concept design or custom design, whatever. And that's not fair for artists. As Xander says, we need to work on it. Just ideas. You have to keep working on your stuff. And for students, I'd say don't stop drawing. Don't stop
Oh,
painting. Don't stop learning foundations. It's super important to keep doing it. Don't rely on technology, because even though it's the future, kind of, it's not working by itself. You need to work on it. And probably if it turns down, you need to keep working on your stuff. You cannot depend on the technology for your work.
yeah, this is so important. Let me just interject one other point to that, because what you just said is like the most important thing we're going to talk about tonight. Um, I've already seen this happen several times in the, I want to choose my words carefully, in the film industry over the last few months. What's happened is that there are certain studios who will try to cut costs, and they will hire an AI artist or an AI prompter for some of their design. And I don't think this is entirely a bad thing, right? Like let's just say you're an indie game developer and you can't afford someone like me. I think you should be able to design, let's say, using prompt crafting. And I think that is valuable, and I think that's important, and I think that can empower individual creators in a great way. But going back to the point, what I've seen several times already is a big studio will try to cut costs, not hire a concept artist. They'll have someone just prompt an output, and that output looks really good and flashy, when you first see it. But then when you look at it for a moment, you see all the just kind of nonsensical AI, just the nonsense that AI output, right? And then the second the director or the art director or the production designer or the costume designer says, can we make a change here? Can we change this shoulder pad? Can we make it smaller? That prompt artist doesn't know how to draw. They don't know how to use Photoshop. They don't know how to resculpt it. They can't make that change. And now suddenly that cost is completely lost. And they have to go back and hire someone like me. And I've already had several stories from colleagues of mine come out where that's happened, and it's really bitten the studio in the ass. So very, very important that you keep, for all of our students here, for everyone, for professionals too, you have to keep working on your drawing, your painting, your sculpting, draw with a pencil, draw on your iPad with an awesome glow from Mike Morgan Designs. Super important. The better that you have those foundational skills, the better that you're going to be able to communicate with the artificial intelligence.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, don't stop drawing. That's pretty like the best advice here. Here we have, okay, Mikhail says, both of you are awesome artists and people. It was good to connecting you in the Cebu Summit. Thank you very much, man. It was a pleasure to meet you there as well.
You too, man.
And here we have Juan Valencia. He says, besides Stable Diffusion, Midjourney, are there any other AI-powered software related to custom design that has caught your attention?
Yes. Not specifically. Here's how I look at it. First off, fuck Midjourney. Don't give them any money. Train your own AI.
Yeah.
Go for open source models. There's a lot of great like Reddits that you can follow. Like you can follow r/artificial intelligence or r/stable diffusion. And these are open source communities that will cue you into tools that you don't have to pay for. Anyone has access to them. It levels the playing field. So, anyone in any country can go and access the latest technology. And this is what we all want to build as a community. So I don't have any specific tools that I recommend, but there's a ton of really interesting models that you can work with. Right now, I'm very interested in animation with AI. I think will be an absolute game changer for the future of filmmaking and game design. So I'm looking at a lot of developments in the open source space around there. Yeah, go for the open source. Absolutely.
Stop using Midjourney, guys.
Sorry, man.
Okay, talking about cutting costs, what do you think about all the layoffs going on nowadays?
Yeah, this is tough to see. When I was first talking about AI, I didn't give as much consideration to the damage that it was going to do, and I do regret. I regret a lot of that. There's a lot of layoffs going on. There's a lot of reshuffling of industries, and it's happening very fast because this tech is developing faster than ever before, right? So obviously, I think it's horrible. A lot of my friends are losing jobs. A lot of companies, all they care about is the bottom line. They don't necessarily care about the artistry, and so they're going to, lay off professional artists in favor of, say, prompt crafting. That being said, I think that it is different from any other technological revolution because artificial intelligence is a very specific type of technology like we've never seen before. But it also has a lot of similarities to other technological revolutions. I kind of think about it, man, I kind of hate this comparison, but I think it's useful. I kind of think about it as like the printing press, where at the time, a lot of like traditional scribes who would like translate books by hand, they lost their jobs, so to speak. At the same time, it allowed everyone to be able to read, to gain literature, to be able to
write a book.
Exactly, yeah, to participate in culture. And so that was a much slower gradation, right, over hundreds of years, whereas this is happening, within a few months. And so there's a lot of pain that's going on. But ultimately, what I think is going to happen is it's going to bring a lot of power to indie developers, to individual storytellers, to small teams of artists, where they're going to be able to create world-class visuals that previously only huge studios like Disney or like Sony could create. But now individuals will have that same power in their hands without all of the nonsense that big studios engage in. And I do think we're going to see a new cultural revolution for individual creators, entrepreneurs, and designers. So yeah, I would say there's a lot of negativity that comes with it. I definitely understand a lot of the pain and the fear that artists are going through. Yeah, that really sucks. I'm very sorry about that. But there's a lot of excellent things that are going to happen too, and try to focus on the technology in a way that's going to empower you as an artist that can compete with these big tech companies.
Yeah, that's a really controversial subject. It's hard to take apart in this kind of discussion. Of course, I'm always be part of the artist. I always be part of the people that are going to lose their job. So it's a pretty hard time. Hopefully soon it gets regulated. It gets ethical. People don't lose their job. Companies start to balance, AI with art, and we are artists, and our passion keep alive. So I don't know. I'm always in part of the artist here. Juan says sorry for the questions. He's really enjoying the live. That's pretty cool, Juan. Now I want to have a. Sorry. Go for it.
No, I just said nothing to be sorry for. I really appreciate the questions. Thank you.
Go for it. That's the idea, guys. I told you to all of you. The idea of Crowd Live is that you can get closer to the artist, that you can understand them, and then you can feel that we're all the same. We're all people. We can have a conversation. We can have a talk. We can have a glass of water, a beer, a coffee, whatever it is. So feel free to ask questions. Don't worry. This is your space as well. And I wanted to ask you. This is a question that a friend of mine had some time ago, and I think it's important too. Do you have apart from art, another stuff that inspires you? I don't know. For example, looking at the birds, looking at the sky, or something weird action that you like, probably that can inspires you, not only in the arts, but also in life in general. Like, I don't know. For example, my friend talked about Japanese bakery. That's different, like something weird. I don't know. I haven't looked for it. but he says that it's something important, something nice that inspires him in life. Maybe, I don't know, something weird, something different that inspires you in life as well.
Yeah, interesting. That's a good one. Yeah, I mean, it's hard for me not to go into any space and just be absolutely fascinated by yeah, the imagery that exists in there. You know, like you said, like going out into nature, it's impossible not to, you know, to be inspired. Maybe the one that came to mind first is like martial arts. I really like fighting, jujitsu, boxing are all things that I've done on and off, you know, at many times in my life. So I don't know how direct of an influence that is to art, but I always know that I'm more creative right after a sparring session.
That's pretty cool. But in life, like, so you like martial arts?
Yeah, very much so. You know, travel is another great one too that I want to do a lot more of. But I love just changing my destination, even though I'm just like inside working on my computer all day.
That's
Yeah, I love going to new places.
that's pretty cool. We talked yesterday about being a digital nomad.
Yeah, yeah. Digital nomad's a great lifestyle. Yeah, we can do it like never before in history. So it's a very cool time to be a digital nomad.
That's pretty cool, man. Um, before Juan's questions, I wanted to ask as well, what's the most challenging project that you've been part of?
And they're all challenging. God damn. Uh, the most. I'm hesitating because it kind of depends on the type of challenge. In my case, I'm actually not a very technical person. Like I'm terrible with like mathematics, and a lot of that's like very relevant to like 3D work. But I'm honestly terrible with computers and that type of logic and mathematical thinking. I'm such a creative, like, you know, I can do all the arts and writing and reading really well. The second you get into maths, I'm like, I can't even function. So all of the 3D work, I felt I had to like work triple as hard as those around me. That I always find the most challenging, but that's also kind of why I go for those types of projects. Because it's very, very hard, but you have to do that kind of hard stuff, you know, develop that skill set. Um, yeah, the other kind of most challenging stuff I find is like creating imagery that is like unique and never seen before. Obviously, you know, everything is built off culture that precedes it. You know, there's kind of a mathematical argument that there is no uniqueness anymore. And I think that there's a degree of truth to that. But that being said, another thing that AI has kind of shown me is that there's basically infinite variations of anything visual. So yeah, trying to come up with something that's like truly unique, whether that's, you know, as something as simple as a unique costume design, or as something complex as like unique emotionality that comes with a piece, that is very hard. It usually takes a lot of just thinking, a lot of open space to be able to design. It's very hard to do like on a schedule for like a production. So yeah, kind of two ways that I look at challenging things.
Jabaz says everything's a remix.
Everything, man, everything.
It's a
Yeah,
remix. It's true. And what is the project that you like the most working on?
all
That
of
you
them,
enjoy?
man.
Like, okay, this is my. I really enjoyed working on this.
Oh man, I'm I'm a very fortunate individual. I'm very lucky. It's Yeah, I really loved everything I've been a part of. I hope I live a lot more years to do it. If I really had to pick, you know, I might actually pick. I've been a concept artist on 4 seasons of American Horror Story. It's a North American television show, and it's a horror show, but it's very fashionable as well. And it's enabled me to combine a lot of passions of mine, which has been like horror design and the macabre, but like very elegant editorial costume type pieces. Yeah, one of the pieces that comes to mind for the season, Horror Story Hotel. one of the stars was Lady Gaga in it, and she wore this chainmail glove. And I was one of the illustrators that helped design that glove under the costume designer Lou Eyrich and with the studio, Michael Schmidt Studios, who actually fabricated the glove. And yeah, that would just combine all of my passions together and was like very challenging for me as a designer. So that's the first thing that comes to mind. Maybe that's what I would pick.
That's amazing, man. That I saw your work and it's pretty dope, bro. It's pretty cool. And
Thank you,
it's pretty
man.
nice that you can combine, both passions of yours, like uh, creatures and design. That's pretty cool.
Very much so. Yeah, I'm very lucky.
Okay, so we're getting to the end of the conversation, but before we have Juan Valencia is asking something about a controversy that came up the last 2 weeks here in Colombia. Uh, it kind of reached some kind of global context, and it's of this girl that said that she has worked for Studio Ghibli animation. I don't know if you know if you heard about this.
No, I haven't heard of the controversy. I'm looking it up right now. Okay. Yep. Okay. Studio Ghibli, Geraldine Fernandez. She pretended to make 25,000 drawings for Studio Ghibli. And what's the controversy? She didn't.
I mean, the thing is that it was like in last semester, she said that she worked in for Studio Ghibli and she made like 25,000 photograms for the movie, and everyone was asking her like how did she did it. She started to be invited to different conferences, different talks in Colombia. A lot of news came about her work in the Studio Ghibli. Colombian artists worked in Studio Ghibli. She did like 25,000 keyframes for the movie, and at the end of the day, it was like a bullshit. She didn't do anything. She didn't even have a portfolio. Like she was studying. At least she was studying design, and she wanted to be an artist, I guess. But she made a whole lie, and people were like super pissed off with her because Colombia don't talk about us being artists, and probably someone says that she worked in Studio Ghibli and Colombia starts talking about Colombian artists and Colombian animators, and she was like the hero of Colombia because she worked in Studio Ghibli, and at the end of the day it was bullshit, and we were pissed off because there's a lot of great artists here in Colombia and animators and studios that do a lot of great stuff for big companies and for big productions, and Colombia didn't even care. They just care about the controversy and some fake news. That sucks. And that was the controversy about her.
That's rough. No, I haven't heard of it. You can see me, I'm over here cringing. Yeah, that's terrible. This is kind of sad, but another great piece of advice that was given to me when I was very young is don't ever lie. Not even like publicly like hers, but just don't do it. It's not worth it. It will never give you the right output, whether in relationships, whether in your professional life. Don't ever lie, not even a white lie. It's not worth it. Trust me. And she is proof of that. And I hope she's getting roasted over this. And
Oh,
she learns her
so
lesson.
roasted. I mean, she was like so super roasted here in Colombia, and she had like in different interviews, someone asked her like, "Hey, how is Hayao Miyazaki?" And she was like, "He's pretty calm. he calls me the Colombian." Come on, man. I think she really believed the joke.
That's bad. And like you said, it's terrible because that took away attention from real Colombian artists. Yeah, this is
Exactly.
terrible. Should not do that. Don't do that. That's fucking horrible, dude.
That's exactly, and that's what I'd like to with Crad to do that. Like move the attention from Colombia to the artists, to the people that really work in these kind of industries, do a lot of stuff, put a lot of effort. I mean, I know how hard it is to get into the industry, so we deserve this kind of attention. We deserve this kind of recognition in Colombia at least. So I think it's pretty cool that the real artists start to stand up, and
Absolutely,
Colombia
man.
looks up for us. Okay, so we're finishing the interview, so we'll have one more question, please. It's from Juan, and he says, how do you disconnect from work and everything related to 3D when you need some time for yourself?
Nah, I don't disconnect. I don't disconnect. No, it's the question a lot because I am kind of an extreme personality type. I don't take days off. I don't take weekends. I think over the past 10 years, I've maybe taken 10 days completely off to like spend with family or like go on a trip in the mountains. But even then, I have a sketchbook with me. That's not advice though. That's just my personality type. Um, More so what I'd say, I mean, every day I do some exercise, right? I woke up this morning, I took a walk, a yoga class. After this call, I'm going to go do a workout outside. So that, every day I do spend moments, right? I disconnect, I won't have my phone on me. It's hard to do. But yeah, so whether you're someone who like, you need a full weekend to disconnect, that's great. Or you just do it in small spurts like me. I do think it's important to like read actual books. This is a tough one, but like meditate. Try to get other types of like interesting exercise in there. Podcasts are a really great way to kind of like disconnect from, say, the artistic work. Like I listen to a lot of philosophy and financial podcasts, and more recently business podcasts too. I find really interesting. Like they don't have to do specifically with the arts, but they'll come together in interesting ways. So yeah, hopefully that helps. That's kind of how I would disconnect. Let's just say.
Disconnect 10 days in 10 years. That's extreme, bro.
Yeah, it is. That's why it's not advice. It's not advice. Don't
It's the way you do
what.
it.
But yeah, I'm just obsessed. I love what I do, so I don't want to disconnect from it. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. I mean, that works for you. And what I can say for you is that you have to. I mean, at least for me, it worked because when I was starting, like I was like 10 years without resting, 10 years without days off, 10 years straight working in different stuff, studying in the university, and then working in my craft, working, learning, and at the end of the day, I lost a lot of stuff with my family. I didn't have like a lot of time for me. It was hard, it was hard. And then when I get into the industry, now I realize that sometimes it's important to take days off,
Yeah.
stay with your girlfriend, stay with your family, stay with friends as well. It's good to balance. But I understood it after being 10 years like super learning, super into it. So sometimes it's hard. So I think it's
What
important to balance that.
what do you do specifically to disconnect? If you were to answer that question, what do you do, Andres?
A workout. I mean, I've been doing exercise since I was a kid. So I play tennis or I play volleyball or I play soccer. Then I get into the gym. So I try to balance sports. So my life some years ago was sports and work. That's it. And learning. That's it. There's nothing else.
Nice. What are you doing any sports currently?
I'm doing just gym, workout, and tennis because I had an injury in my back, so I have to stop.
Got
And it
you,
was bad
man.
as well, guys. If you're staying sit down the whole day, it's bad for your back.
Yeah, that's something I wish I was told sooner. I highly recommend the standing desk. Don't sit down if you don't have to, and like, yeah, please do something like active to balance that. Otherwise, you're not going to go very far, or you're going to be one of these old artists and like a terrible body and like a horrible, life expectancy. You don't want to be that. So I'm glad to hear it, man. I wanted to ask you specifically because I know you're in really good shape. So you'll have to show me some tennis when I'm out there later this year.
Of course, man. Of course, it's pretty cool. We can play together. My girlfriend is
Hell,
playing too, so so yeah.
dude, that's great.
For all of you guys, do sports, stretch out, go for workout, disconnect a bit. It's important. If you have like if your personality type is like Xander's, okay, you can work and work and work and work. but try to balance. My advice is try to balance that. Sometimes it's important to have
Wait,
some time for you and your family as well, because your family is going to be thankful for that as well.
yes, absolutely. All of that is very important advice. Yes, completely agree.
Okay, to finish the interview, I wanted to ask you, what piece of advice would you give to the young artists out there that want to get into the industry, or those artists that, like me, for example, are in the industry, but maybe they want to get more clients or get more into design, for example? What would be a piece of advice or three advice that you can give us?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to give something philosophical, and then I'll give something practical. More philosophical. Really, really focus on what you love to do. Sorry, I just disconnected for a second.
Okay.
Yeah, really try to carve out that time every single day to focus on something that just like what would you work on completely for yourself, and try to carve out some of that time every single day. Trust me, it's invaluable, and it gets more important as you go. More practically and more industry specific. I'm trying to narrow this down because there's obviously a lot there. Um, Build up from that passion. Ruthlessly compare your work to the artist working today, and always ask yourself, how can this be closer to the artist that I want to be? So, pick an artist who's 2 decades your senior and constantly compare your portfolio. Keep heading in that direction. And then what you're going to do is you're going to make a massive list with an Excel spreadsheet, and you're going to write down 1,000 different contacts, studios, art directors, companies. And what you're going to do is you're going to send them that portfolio. You're going to say, hey, I love your work. What do you think of my work? How can I be better? How can I work for you one day? And none of them are going to respond. You're going to get 1,000 rejections. And then you're going to do all of that over again. And in 6 months' time, you're going to have a completely new portfolio. And because you took the first piece of advice, you're going to have a passion. And so it's going to make you want to continue working on your portfolio. Once you have that new portfolio and you're passionate about it, you're going to do all of that again. You're going to send your portfolio to me. You're going to send your portfolio to Andres. None of us are going to respond. No, I'm just kidding. We're both lovely. But we're not going to hire you because you're not going to be good enough. But what you're doing is you're showing all these professionals that you have a passion for it. And so then they're going to start replying slowly but surely. Another 6 months go by. You're going to reach out to all of them. And this time, maybe one of them will get back to you. And that's how you start building up plans. It's as simple as that. You work, you reach out to people. You work, you reach out to people. And you slowly build it up. You do those passion pieces along the way so that you never lose any energy for it. And eventually you'll get to a point where you have a list of clients. You have a full-time job and you have clients on the side. You have personal projects that are going to lead to other studio work. Eventually, maybe you'll even own your own studio or be able to art direct your own projects, or direct your own films, things like that. So it's a gradual process. Just keep chipping away. There's space for all of us as artists. So it's going to be an excellent time. Trust me.
Thank you very much, man. It's really inspiring, your words. And just to end, he says, what comes for you? Is there any spoiler that you can give us or not?
Man,
Hood or tea?
I know. I'm so tempted, man. I got so much in the works right now. You know what? I'm not even gonna do any spoilers. We gotta leave it there. Hit me up on Instagram. Yeah, follow my work. I'm gonna be dropping tons of stuff. Follow Andres' work. Check out the sesiones for Crad. Yeah, we'll leave it at that.
Before we finish, there's something I was forgetting about. Xander is going to give some mentorships. So all of you guys, hey, Juan that has been asking, Jabaz, who was with Mike, Demet, all of you guys, Andres Martinez as well. Xander is going to give some mentorships. So can you tell us about those programs?
Yeah, thanks for asking, man. Yeah, I've had a lot of great mentors in my life who are very generous with their knowledge from me. So I always want to pay that back. You can always shoot me a message on Instagram, and I get a lot of messages, but I try my hardest to respond to them. I try to give as much information away for free as possible. I think that's super important in the age of AI. So please do that. Feel free to do that anytime for me. And then those of you who have the budget, who are looking to do a more in-depth program, I'm going to open a couple slots in February for a mentorship program where you can work directly one-on-one with me. And what we're going to do is build your portfolio up and tailor it very specifically to the role that you want to get, to the job that you want to get, to the artist you want to be. So yeah, you can shoot me a DM on Instagram at XanderSmith_design if you want to be a part of that. Take your portfolio to the next.
That's pretty cool. So please, all of you guys, follow Xander in Instagram. Follow him on ArtStation as well. Go to the social media for him. Ask him about the mentorship. DM him. He's going to be really glad to answer you every question you have. Sorry. So that's it. So we are ending this interview. Xander, thank you very much for being with us. Thank you for accepting the invitation. It was a great conversation. As I told you, it's like having a coffee, having a beer. We have to take a beer one day, so we can keep talking about life and stuff, and martial arts. So Xander, thank you very much, man.
Yeah, Andres, it was a pleasure talking with you, man. I super respect you and your work and what you're doing with Crad. Any way I can help, man. Yeah, it's been awesome, dude. Been really great chilling with you tonight.
Thank you very much, man. And all of you guys, thank you very much for being with us. Thank you for being tuned. Thank you for being connected. I hope you enjoyed this live. I think it was great. Please, as I told every time, I'm not a YouTuber or whatever, but please like and subscribe for the channel because more people can be interested in. So we're going to have more interviews, more talks, more stuff here. So if you like this content, like and subscribe, guys. So all of you guys, thank you very much for being here, and see you later. This was the Crad Live number 68. So it's a lot of things coming here. So guys, bye bye. Xander, thank you very much, and I'm saying goodbye to all.